Okay, we're live on YouTube as well. Yeah. Now I just went. Thank you, Mandalov's Cakes, and I love the little bubbles. It's really funny. Uh, put it on entertainment. I will next time. More naughty entertainment. Thank you, Julia. Appreciate it. Eric, thank you, Nico. Eric Proof. Take spirit molecule plus look at diffracted lasers. C code. Beautiful. I should just put it on my on the website. What's up, Ava? I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, on YouTube you don't have character limit. Uh, Bob Barkley. Yes, if I think you're spelling the thing you think you're spelling, yes. I don't see. Okay, I'm just going back in the comments to see if I missed anything of importance. Welcome everybody, and now YouTube is live. Okay, so the business is in the house. What do you mean by simulation in this context? That is the perfect question. Thank you, Digital Keith. The actual claim is that we live in a computational environment, so it's almost like the matrix upside down. In other words, the real world is actually computational, and this is one slice of reality. Now, it's a relevant question because for the most part, what people think by simulation, they mean fake, and it does not mean it's fake. It just means that we are experiencing ourselves in the same way, but the fundamentals of the world are computational. And as I'm sure some of you know, there were some murmurs from the physics community in the last few decades, and well, in the last 100 years, but really in the last few decades more, that there are strong reasons to believe that at bottom the world is computational. But this is something that obviously was always put out into the future as like something that is highly theoretical and probably will never ever be able to come in contact with this kind of with the testing of this hypothesis. Well, to my surprise, and now to the surprise of every single person who saw the observation, that is in fact not the case. Um, the actual nature of what it truly is rests on many different data points, including people's experiences in the space. What's up, Madolov's Cakes and Ava? Glad to see you on YouTube. Thank you, guys. And uh, and it rests on a very obviously long conversation about the details of these experiences. But the one thing that I can say with an absolute certainty is what we see with the type of experiment that I'm suggesting, which is the diffracted laser, as Cal helped us understand very quickly, and with the use of that particular molecule, you will see very coherent code running in surfaces. And this observation is not sometimes available, but always available. It's always the same for all humans, for all times. Doesn't matter your condition. It's what you would call objective. Now, obviously, the subject matter is very contentious, and the size of the claim is enormous. So, in order to establish this, scientifically and then culturally, this is it's going to be a while, but the conversation has to start somewhere. So I started releasing my videos talking about that a few years ago, which you can watch either on TikTok, or if you want the full version, then you can watch it on YouTube on Dango Thoughts. We meet here on the daily so I can answer people's questions in with more specificity. And I also wanted to engage with people more directly to see what actually interests them. And I'm discovering that for the most part, there's an enormous crowd of very curious people that also have very large understanding in different fields, philosophy and science and technical, and even technical skills, and people who you would, I guess, what you would call more kind of, straight shooters that don't really involve themselves with either psychedelics or even too much of an esoteric thought. And all of a sudden, you discover that the world is filled with people that are ready to entertain new ideas, but they are interested in the rigor of it, and they want to know that whatever ground they stand on is solid. And hopefully, this is something we are providing here. And definitely, it is a type of a game, I would say, but the game seems to be more of a personal nature versus a physical nature, even though the physical component is very important. The chicken of the egg, Mandelov's cakes, of what? Thank you, Nico. You're so kind. Thank you. And by the way, anybody is welcome to come and chat. We're very friendly. And as the business just jumped up, how are you doing, brother?
Hey, doing well. How about you?
I'm doing amazing. Today was very chill. and I'm very happy with that. So that is it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Video live on TikTok and YouTube. To your question, Kirsten. And by the way, I'm extra ADHD today, so feel free to either put me back on course of the business, or interrupt me, or like be as rude as you want. Bottom line, came from yeah. Welcome, Cynthia. Good to see you. Kirsten, to your question, you can use a lot of different platforms.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I think
Oh,
that
sorry. I came in when whenever you were saying talking about the code, you know, just showing that higher reality. Pretty much, we're playing a game of The Sims, and then our Sims are now creating a game of The Sims, and then
and it's simulations all the way. Yep.
Playing a game of The Sims.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
it's like
it's one of the
what your discovery is. It's like you're one of the Sims, and one of the levels of the game. It's like, hold up, we're in a game of The Sims, and you're trying to let all the other Sims know, hey, there's like higher levels to this. Hold up, what do you mean? Show me the proof.
And then there's the proof. But also, in addition to that, you do have, I guess, the difference between any other claim that was put on the table. Today, I posted on Instagram, like, a clip from, and Kirsten, I didn't forget you. I'm going to answer, I promise. But on Instagram, I posted this clip by Dr. James Sylvester, the physicist who discovered Adinkras, the error correcting codes, the code of reality. And people very often quote him in the context of the simulation theory. But the reason that I posted that clip, because it contains the one bit of information in the end that I always complain that people don't include, which is that he himself does not believe it means we live in a simulation. And I think that's important to mention. And he mentions that. So I was like, okay, I'm okay with this clip. And what he says at the end is that he thinks it says something much more interesting about reality than it's just being simulated. I actually agree. I think that the reason, obviously, I'm using the word simulation is because something that people are familiar with, and it's easy to phrase, and then people either get interested or not, and then you can have a conversation. But to unpack what the simulation really means, as was asked here today by Digital Keith, I think it was, I think that is the key question, because words are inert. They only mean what we attach to them, but we don't attach something to them arbitrarily. We attach it through different processes of culture. So it's also organic to an extent. The word simulation has a very particular definition. And to talk about the definition of this word, to get to the bottom of what computational means, what simulation actually means, does it mean that we are nullified in some way by, like, we have no control over what we're doing? All of these details actually, I think, really matter. I think ultimately the agents are as free as they would be if they would live in a physical world. In other words, either not at all or completely, but that does not change whether we live in a physical world or in a simulation. The important thing is that we have a conscious experience that is appropriating somehow, and we have the front seat of whatever this is. Love your work, Dan. Kyle, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And Cal, that came also to YouTube. Thank you guys for the support on YouTube today. This is awesome. We got to bring it up. So now, before the business is
I think it's a key experience for anyone that's been in the molecule space. I bring it up all the time, but that sensation of something being hyper real, like feeling more real than real, but it's an absolute click in your brain that shows you that simulation, meaning not fake, but simulation, like lower level of reality. And there's definitely higher levels out there.
Yep. And by the way, I forget. Did you actually see the code?
Let's see. I have not by using your method.
Got it.
I mean, I haven't. I brought up that one night where I've seen Allison Gray's code, because I got it tattooed on my arm because it left such an impact on me the first time I saw that. But no, not with the method that you've used yet.
Okay, so I can't wait to. I can't wait to hear your take on it when you do try it. Before I completely space on it, Kirsten, sorry, I just stopped like 3 times. So you can do a lot of different streaming services that can stream to multiple locations. I tried StreamYard, and I thought it's just gonna, I just put my X account, I put my YouTube account, and I thought it's just gonna stream. But apparently, it's not that simple, and you have to, just like in the OBS, you have to kind of like arrange the screens and all that stuff. And I should watch a tutorial on how to do it. But the short answer is you just basically use one of the streaming services. I think you have to pay a subscription in all of them to stream to multiple places. TikTok you can't, by the way. Not if you have a Windows, I think you can. If you have a Mac, you can't at the moment. You can't do TikTok. They forbid it through Mac. You have to be directly on TikTok for some reason. And to Nico's question, Nico Mackey, I wonder if it works on the other molecule. I don't know because I haven't tried. I know it works with Aya, and I know it works with mushrooms. You need at least 3.5 grams with mushrooms, but I don't know if it's going to work with the other molecule. However, I also feel like that one is, I mean, honestly, this one just takes you out of commission immediately. That's my experience. Like, it's just you're gone. So I don't even know how you're going to be sitting there. It's possible to kind of dance on the line there, but I've never tried it, so I can't say with any amount of certainty. And considering the fact that it's radically different, and I think, well, if they wouldn't be sharing the name chemically, I think it should have been called something completely different. Like, it's not even in the same realm of the same thing. So I think even calling them the same name is misleading. Which you haven't, but some people do.
With the spirit molecule, your mind is completely sober, but you're in like a completely different dimension compared to other substances. You can kind of tell how your mind warps with those chemicals in a way. But I mean, with the spirit molecule, you're completely coherent the whole time of what you're experiencing.
1 second. I heard you. I'm also responding to a text at the same time. Did we speak before? I'm trying to be better at responding to YouTube because I do ignore them most of the time. It's hard for me to follow both.
I'm gonna grab my laptop here in a little bit tonight and try to follow along with the YouTube comments as well here in a minute.
Yeah, especially when Cool Guy 42 shows up, bro. First of all, you and him will vibe. Second of all, he's hilarious. He's amazing when he's there. And Isaac says he can ramble for days on YouTube. Please come on board. You're more than welcome. You're on YouTube. Tell people to reconnect. Wait, what? Maybe it was from before. Okay. Wow, man, I can't wait to eventually get a moderator. It will be so much easier. It's so hard to jump between the comments. They're drawing of somewhat of what it looks like. Oh, okay. Digital Keith, we got that. Thank you so much. Again, I see we have another. Kirsten wants to come on. I think to win is to live authentically. I agree with that. Hey, Kirsten.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Are you playing with a rattle? Are you holding a rattlesnake?
No. I was just putting my earphones
in.
Okay. Somebody was asking about if you could see it on 5MEO. You can't see anything on 5MEO.
I mean, yeah.
Except for the light.
Yeah. Also, just I know that maybe the algorithm doesn't know that name, but we should try and not mention these things on the live. Just a reminder.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Good point.
No, I think, but
5.
Yeah, we call it 5. So it's you're right, and this was my median intuition, obviously, but I did see something. Well, definitely visuals at the end of it, right when you kind of come back, and I always describe these visuals. This is why I also know that the character is different because the visuals actually were much more along the lines of acid than anything else, and they were much more fluid. They were much kind of like space-like. They weren't as the spirit molecule that we're usually talking about, it has this kind of like almost jerky nature. It almost goes like tick, 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 and has this like a, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like it has this kind of movement, and it doesn't have the same kind of fluidity. I don't know.
It's completely, to me, it's a different entity altogether.
Okay.
I couldn't even imagine trying to see a code you know?
Yeah. But maybe somebody can. So, again, it's like with the spirit molecule, as I'm sure you've experienced many times with people. Some people are just they're literally incapable. No matter how much it is, it can be one token. They just can't handle it. Literally, they just take one token. They're like, they're out. And I can drive on it. Don't drive on it. But I can, it can do.
Same.
Yeah.
I can do everything with it. I can walk around.
Yeah. So I think it depends on the person. Maybe there's the people with the 5 that can do whatever, and who knows. Again, I'm not encouraging you to do it, but if you are doing it and you want to try it with the laser, by all means, and please let me know. That would be extremely valuable. Let's see. Our understanding is greatly expanded by technology, but everything is understandable. I agree with that. And I love your handle, by the way. Jesus's first phone. Wait, Montelov's case. Does that mean you came back from the rabbit hole? Because the rabbit is outside. Because everything is man-made. Well, I don't know.
Jesus' sin card is full. He needs a new sin card. He filled up his last one. For us, he did it for
well, no,
us.
it's just this is a new. This is the first phone for the second coming. And
Gotcha,
in the previous
so it's a new
one,
SIM card.
they didn't need
Completely empty
phones.
SIM card, yeah.
Yeah. Because everything is man-made. What do you mean by everything is man-made? I'm interested in what you mean by that. Yeah. Nope. Good, Julia. You know what I love, Julia? By the way, I saw some of your comments. So Julia is hilarious. First of all, you are always welcome, and I mean that. But you're hilarious because I don't remember you saying one positive thing since you joined, but you're still here. So I hope this is not a waste of your time. And you're always welcome to come on and chat. Look up at the sky and just wave to freak out the players because they're sentient. I know. I mean, they know. That I think that's the main difference. That if our sims are conscious, then we don't really know that, which would be, I don't know, a strange realization because then we have to consider their rights and everything, and we definitely can't have games like GTA.
Danny, don't you always feel like they know and they're watching and they're always paying attention? Because I definitely always do.
Oh yeah, I think they're. I mean, it's just kind of like TV. It's just they can just either look at it or not look at it. Like they always see us when being affected by. Yeah, it's definitely my experience. Again, apologies to.
And whenever they're not monitoring, they can come back at any time, rewind, see what they missed, catch up to our conversation right now. It's the same way we can do with television, like you said.
Basically, turn off and turn on. And again, I apologize in advance. Today, I've already offended 2 different people in live, not even on a live chat. So I'm making sure you guys know this is one of these days that truly my brain is just out of control. Like the ADD is just out of control. So like if I cut in the middle or whatever, just bring me back. I'm having a hard time paying attention today. Brains affected by chemicals for sure. We try to intact to others in the same sense of what I'm seeing now. Wait, can you guys help me understand this? What do you say? I hope there will be substance to this. Oh, so brains being affected by chemicals. Oh, I see. Well, the only thing I would reframe there is that what things actually are. So, right. So I would consider the molecule to be more of a technology than what you would call a substance, right? And I don't mean it euphemistically, and I don't mean it metaphorically. I mean actually, because a technology is a repeatable either tool or method that allows you to do some kind of a task without that is not possible without that method or tool. In that sense, it's absolutely a technology because you get access to a particular space that you don't usually get. That space is extremely realistic. And now with the laser experiment, it also allows you to verify that at least there's one component that you can replicate 100% of the time, which is unheard of, basically. Same sense of what's seeing now.
Yeah, Mother Eye, that's been used for thousands upon thousands of years by the ancient tribes, right? So it's been utilized as a tool since before recorded history, probably. It's probably the oldest known human tool there is, after fire and stone tools and stuff like that.
Somebody said, "I'm offended by your apology, Dan."
And I always wonder how they got the idea to put those specific plants together. Like use this one, but not this one, and do this and don't do this. That's
From what I've read and heard is that like the spirits or the trees or just nature like told them. They just got
the plants.
That's what they're saying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like Like the specific, like who was the first one that was told to do it? Yeah, because there's got to be that first person that was told.
Well, because these plants are not even living in the same exact area. They usually need like a different environment to combine these plants. So they say that
Yep.
the plants told them. But then again, they're high out of their minds.
Danny, just like Danny, the beans told you to get the laser, you know?
Not exactly. It was more like a series of hints. There a lot of guesswork, but maybe it was a similar process probably.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure it was somewhat similar like to that.
Yep. No, wait. Let me see. Have you tried the double slit experiment with the laser? Well, so it's interesting because diffraction is kind of the interference pattern you get like in the double slit experiment. Yes, it's not the official double slit experiment, but I have not officially done it with like the proper way of doing the double slit experiment, and I absolutely should. But it was the main thing on my mind when I was trying to figure out how to, potentially do something with that space. And so the double slit experiment was definitely central to me trying to figure this out. And you're right, I should probably just get on that. Part of a long list of things to try. We're working now on trying to erect a structure of both individuals and actual, structure around the experimentation, so we can start doing a lot of these experiments in a way that we not in the same way we were doing it so far, which is like just a bunch of people all over the world just trying to randomly do this thing. Now there's going to be some structure. We're going to log everything, and it's going to be much more organized. How digestible is the proof or evidence? I'm all for hallucinogens, but how can the claim be proven? That is a great question. Michael, is it? Michael Weber. The longer answer and the full answer is a little bit more complicated. The short answer is you use the same methodology you use to prove anything that has to do with human cognition. So I always say that in neuroscience, everything depends on the first person experience coupled with what we can measure from the brain. So you have the third person observation or whatever is active in the brain in a way that we can reliably measure, either by EEG or MRI or fMRI, whatever the tool is, coupled with reports from people or something that we can. But sometimes people say, yeah, but sometimes you just have people in a particular state, and so you don't need to get the report. Well, the point is that if they occupy a particular state, that state only makes sense to you because you are also a human and you know what it's like. Without that element, you wouldn't have that ability. So it still counts for you rely on the subjective experience of somebody, even if they don't report it. You rely on it in a way that you understand it from your own experience. So it's a little tricky because at the moment, ontologically, the way that modern science goes about the ontological pool we're drawing from and the epistemological narrative is that unless you can replicate it, unless it's something that you can measure with an external device or at least verify in some other third person way, then you can't really count it for being real. The rest
but it is replicatable.
No, I'm saying I'm talking about before we get to talking about the laser. I'm saying that the problem we're talking about it to a scientist is because the perception is that unless you have a way to verify it, right? And for them, verification is not a bunch of people seeing it. That's not enough, right? That's not something that they consider. That's exactly the problem. But what they're forgetting, which is my point, which is what you're alluding to right now, is that everything in neuroscience and cognitive science is done this way. They just don't think about it in this way. But it is this way. Like if you see this collection of neurons firing in the brain and all the people, I'm just make something very random, and all the people that have this firing exactly there report a level of depression. Let's say we say, okay, well, this region of the brain has something to do with the manifestation of depression. Is it the thing that causes people feel depression, or is it coupled with some other processes that we don't know, but we know they're correlated in some way? But the correlation rests on the first person perspective, and you aggregate that across many, many individuals. So I would claim that we're doing the same here. If you have over 1,000 individuals, and yes, it was not tested in a lab yet, but you have over 1,000 coherent individuals who are talking about it in a intelligible way, not like, oh, dude, I was out of my mind. Like there's a difference between that kind of talk and just a normal person who's a lawyer in their day life, and then they just try this and they go, what is that? That's crazy, right? And then and you collect enough of these accounts in which people report the same thing, you're starting getting something of substance. But all of that is only to appease a certain kind of what we would call, cultural understanding, as it's mitigated by science. The truth is that if you try it for yourself, you will understand in that instance that you don't need anybody to tell you that it's real. The second you see it, you go, oh, okay. Because there's something about that observation that immediately communicates to you that you're looking at something real, because it has all the parameters and all the attributes that real things have. So it basically looks the same. I hope this was not too convoluted. Go ahead.
Sorry, I've also noticed with some of my clients, once they see it, it's like they actually understand, oh my gosh, it's like a video game, and almost like you can do everything, or do anything. It like it opens the mind to that. It seems to open the mind to other possibilities that they would have never deemed possible before when they see it. It seems to open something else up in the mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Versus just having, somebody tell you something, and then when you experience it, it's like, wow.
So it is, yeah. So I actually, at the same time, reading some comments of Kyle on YouTube, because he says that he and like 50 of his friends, 50, he said? I think he said 50. He said he saw it 50 times, but he saw it with a bunch of his friends. So he's saying, briefly, I had brought up doing a blind study and seeing what they say. Did you see it with the laser? Yes. And got a bunch of friends that seen it without even explaining to them what they are looking for. Some said it looks like zeros and ones, but it's not that not that just similar. Very cool. I asked because people say that see it without the laser, and it seems to be another kind of code. Yeah, after seeing the
question, Danny. So once you discovered the molecule the first time, how many years into using it as a tool did you discover the laser experiment to use?
How many years from the point that I thought about the idea, or what?
Yeah, like from the moment you first tried it to the moment you discovered the code. How long in between was that?
Like after you smoked DMT after you smoked that for the first time, how long did it take you to come up with the code?
Wait, after I built the laser?
No. So I'm just saying, like, the first time you tried the molecule, you didn't discover the.
Oh, no. So I was doing the molecule for a long time. It was just something I really enjoyed. The first time I think I ever did it was 2010 maybe, or 11. And
when was the first time you used the laser?
No, so okay, so that's a very long story, about a decade. But it wasn't even like it's not like the second I smoked it, I knew that I'm supposed to look for something. The second I smoked it, just like with everybody, I just had a crazy, I was just blown away.
That's the connection I'm trying to make, is there's a lot of individuals out there that have been using the molecule for decades that probably still have no idea of what you've discovered,
Oh, and again, this is why I'm trying to distance myself from any, in the documentary, and also in all my talks and everything. I'm trying to distance myself from this entire way of thinking. I don't want to be associated with the word psychedelic. I don't want to be associated with the word spiritual. I don't want to be associated with any of these words, not because there's anything wrong with them. They're just buzzwords. They're loaded with conceptual frameworks that people already have hovering in their heads. And I want everybody to understand, we're talking about the discovery of something real in reality. We're not talking about what they would imagine esoteric spaces. So maybe they are, but their connection to what we really experience right now is very straightforward. That's what I'm putting on the table. And it's only after I started having a set of extremely realistic experiences on it. So for anybody who ever tried it, I know it already feels realistic, but then there was like a new window that opened for me, maybe 7 years in. Like, I don't think it's a time thing. I think it was just like a period in my life where I was in a particular moment of seeking, and I really looked in the right direction, so to speak. And then all of a sudden a new window opened where I was just like, whoa, like that feels like reality. That feels like real. And then
Yeah.
from that point on, I started interacting with it in a different way, and I started doing it every day. Like I did it all day, every day for like over a year. And then after that, I kept on asking, like, okay, well, Jesus, just give me something. Like, tell me something. Like, I know you're real. How do we talk about this? Like, how do we, And then there was no answer. So I was like, okay, well, if it's real, there has to be a way to figure it out. And then when I started actively thinking about it, and when I did, that's when the first hints started appearing. Not while I was not on the molecule. And then I started paying attention to that. And then it was another 3-4 years before I fully got to a place where like, oh, okay. And then we tried, the idea of the laser kind of came up. I didn't even know. It's not like I by mistake turned on a laser. It's just like I knew that it was saying very clearly, you use a 650 nanometer diffracted laser, something's going to happen. I had no idea what it was. I didn't know it was going to open a portal. Like I have no idea what it was, but I was, again, the whole time I was like, oh, it's just like a fun game. This is hilarious, right? Never thought it would work in a million years. I just played with something. And then I turned it on, sure enough, and here we are.
Danny,
and yeah.
Do you remember when I did that experiment with the molecule, and it told me beforehand that if you worked with dark field microscopy, that it would change your blood cells back to normal? And I was just like, okay. It kind of hinted it to me around that. Then I actually found somebody like a year later who was doing that, and it did exactly that. It took your blood cells, because as we get older, you get real low and you get blood that clumps together.
Mm-hmm.
And as we did the experiment, we videoed it as well. I think I sent it to you. It completely changes your blood cells back to their normal, healthy state.
But
it doesn't stay that way forever. But that's
wait. But how do you know that though? I think I asked you this before. How do you know? Like, did you take a blood sample? How do you know?
Yes, it took a blood sample, a live blood sample, and you put it under a microscope. It's a certain kind of microscopy.
Whoa.
And they analyze the blood. And so we did it before using the molecule, and then after, and it's immediate. The blood. I thought I sent you the video. If not, I'll send it to you again.
Well, listen. Yeah. The last few months are a blur. Believe me. One second. Let me just because the business, you caught me in the middle of finishing reading Kyle's comments, and I want to make sure I get through this because YouTube was really complaining about me ignoring them. After seeing the code in future trials, I just start seeing the symbols briefly show up on walls in random places. So Kyle, I just had a guy literally try this a few days ago for the first time, and he just told me the same thing. If you can email me, please, lasersimulationx@gmail.com, lasersimulationx@gmail.com. Maybe you already have, I'm not sure, but just email me about this because the guy is reporting exactly the same thing. I can't say the same. I do see it sometimes vaguely when I'm really tired, but not like super coherently, which this is what you're saying is very, very important. The laser is the code. I'm offended by I'm interested that the molecule is just about everything. We were definitely meant to find it. Me and at least a dozen of friends have all seen the code. I made a bunch of lasers and started handing them out to friends just to share this incredible discovery. Wow, that's amazing. That is incredible. Over a dozen. Incredible. Also, SoFlo, I saw your comment about stop motion. Are you talking about me? Yeah, I can't, man. I'm crazy today, and that's okay. To prove evidence B. Jumped again. Dude. Me does the trigger makes me feel intense emotions. Amazing Amalia. Danny, why do I care so much? How can I not be triggered by others' actions that make me feel intense emotions? I think if I understand your question correctly, it's just your question about your relationship with other human beings and that they trigger you sometimes because you really care. Inherently know we are living a simulation and still have no control over my emotions. So this is important maybe I do feel some responsibility if the idea creates any turbulence in anyone to, maybe make some more sense of it so it doesn't do that, or maybe doesn't do it as intensely. One thing is very important to recognize what I said in the beginning, which is that it does not change in any way the responsibility of being a good person, the reality of your actual experience. all of these things are still exactly the same. So nothing should change. The fact that we're living in a computational environment does not change that it matters how you treat other people. It matters how you feel. Suffering still has the same central role and the mitigation of it as anything would in life. And that's a very important. I think that conceptually it shouldn't do much to your day to day, aside from the fact that you know that it's actually, we are straight up, for real, part of a much larger thing. Now, that being said, I know that for a lot of people, in fact, I would assume actually at this point, which was a surprise to me, to be quite honest, probably to most people on the planet, that's already kind of obvious in a different way, because most people on the planet are either religious, so to them it's apparent that we're part of a bigger thing in that way. Either their beliefs are justified, not justified, doesn't matter, that's their lived reality. Or they are, I guess, what you would call the more modern, I don't hope not offending anybody, religions of like people who believing in more like spiritual conceptual concepts, right? We're all one, all that stuff. Again, this is not to say for any second true or false in any direction. It's just that all I'm saying is that for a lot of people, that's already a reality. The only thing this does for me is that, like, oh, okay, now it makes sense of that reality. If we're part of this larger tapestry, it makes sense. A lot of these ideas, actually, and many of the, metaphysical claims all of a sudden make sense, because ultimately it's all information. And if it exists in some kind of a substrate that is always here, then everything makes sense. The source makes sense. The fact that we're all part of the same unitary system makes sense. Ghosts make sense. Many of these things make sense. I think that the day-to-day should not actually suffer consequences. If anything, you just want to know that, not so much in the voyeuristic sense of like I'm always being watched, just in the sense that there's an extra reason to be the best version of yourself, because it might not, or I would claim for sure not, but just to extend an olive branch to somebody who's not fully buying it, there's a good reason for you to entertain at this point that this is not everything. This is not it. There's not that it's not, it's like it's not important. It is very important, but it doesn't end here. So there's many more levels to be a best version of yourself. This is just the beginning of the road. But one very important caveat, which I think very often being glossed over, people, there's this it's very common now that people talk about, ascending to the fifth dimension, fourth dimension, eighth dimension, whatever dimension. But I always tell them, look, if you just really want to go there, you're just addicted to it, like people are addicted to substances. Because if you can't be happy here, more content and more dimensions is not going to make you happier. You're going to be the same miserable self if you can't actually be happy now. So we don't have tigers chasing us. There's many things in our modern world that are to be grateful for. So finding that ability to just be grateful and truly be happy as much as you can in the moment with the people you love, with your pets, with your kids, with your significant other, all of these things, that's the only thing that should matter, because ultimately you can take this ability with you to infinity. And it doesn't matter, then you can add content, then you can make it more colorful, then you can make it more. But being miserable in 8 dimensions, I'm pretty sure it's even worse than being miserable in 3 dimensions. So just focus on the same thing you would if you wouldn't think in terms of, simulation. If anything, it's more of like a technological question than a spiritual one for me, at least this portion of it. Self-love, no expectations for others to make us feel loved, happy, healing wounds. It's my favorite new thing, by the way. Thank you, Mandala Cakes. When I'm going on a rant for like almost 10 minutes, and then one of my listeners just literally makes one text with 3 lines that says everything I said. So thank you. Emotions come up, simulation simulated or not, your choice to entertain them or let them go. Exactly. I'm sorry, I just sat down. What of this molecule? Dasha round the world. If you project a diffractive laser on a surface and you ingest a particular molecule, also named the spirit molecule, you will see code running in surfaces. Not easy though, for sure. Spin Mocha, have you published a paper about this? No, not yet. Working on one, and been working on one forever. Every time I run into the same problem. How do I frame this in a way that still speaks some science talk? Like, how do you put it in categorical and coherent terms that will not automatically be branded as crazy? Because if you're publishing a paper, there's no point of publishing it in anywhere unless it can have any kind of impact. In order for it to have impact with the more rigorous scientific community, it has to draw from how science tends to describe things, and that is not that easy. I can write like a general outline, I have that, but I am aiming towards writing it as an actual, as an actual paper. So on its way, and I'm pretty sure that the new experiments that we're planning to do now with magnets, bismuth, and a few other experimentation that we're planning on will help us write the paper, because it will give us a little bit more concrete data points to mention. Very often it's kind of like dry language. It's like I really don't like the way science papers are written very often, but there's no other way. You have to standardize some kind of a baseline of rigorous talk to allow the scientific machinery to do what it's doing with it. And I think that's very important, by the way. But thank you for the question. Okay, my simulation is been married since 1997 to the same man, raised 3 children with this person. So that is what I would call the lowercase m matrix, and there's the capital M matrix. And I would say that this one is just as important, if not more important, because it's closer to us, what you just mentioned, which is the context within which we exist, right? The narrative, the belief system, the people we're around, the government, the country we live in, all of these. It doesn't make it bad, or because people, it's very, very common nowadays to demonize anything of a certain scale, institutions and government and big pharma and all of that stuff. But it's just a thing that is there that allows us to do things together. So the lowercase matrix is very important because it allows us to keep sanity. But at least what I'm talking about with the experimentation is capital M matrix, which is like, no, like not conceptually, like straight up. This is, we are inside a computational system. But what you're saying is extremely important, because I think that ultimately that's the only thing that really matters to people. As someone who really loved, the stars and astronomy since I was a little kid, it was always kind of beyond me how people don't. I know it's gonna sound so corny, but it's true. Like, it was always drove me crazy that people like care about so many things that are not the stars, and I just didn't understand how people just don't look up all the time, which is crazy, right? And then I realized when I grew older, it's like, yeah, I mean, life weighs you down. There's a lot of things happening to you, and it matters to you that you have food on the table and everybody are happy. And so terrestrial concerns are important, and they are part of, also kind of like, if we are in this tiny corner of the universe physically and conceptually, I think it behooves us to try and make the best corner of the universe we possibly can. So straight up, I support this message. Dash around the world. Wow, correct. Yes, it is. It is a pretty big wow when you see it. Makes me as happy as he does sad. You just describe marriage, or like a real healthy marriage. All right, the business. Good to see you. I've been told my blood is viscous. Okay. I don't know what this was referring to. What is the ultimate thing you want to accomplish? Great question. I'm not sure. I think it's the same question that you would ask anybody who discovered originally quantum physics, which is that it was never clear that it would ever have any application for anything terrestrial ever, because it was so out there. And now we wouldn't be able to do this without quantum physics. You wouldn't be able to build lasers, by the way, without quantum physics. So I don't know.
It's almost like the discovery of DNA. They didn't know what to do with it when they found it, but now we've got CRISPR technology where we can edit DNA.
Yep. And that's exactly right. So I don't know what I'm trying to achieve. Actually, I think that I ran with your question unfairly, because your question is relevant. What I personally want, I want to communicate about this as honestly as possible, and try and create somewhat of a frame of different point of views about these things while understanding the essence of it to some substantial degree, and allowing more of the scientific community to speak easier with what you would call the more spiritual community, because there's a merit here, there's a merit here, and there's a disconnect in the middle. And I think it's only because of language and how people use language, and there's no need for that. So I see my work as more of a bridge. I can have enough of a serious talk with people that are much more scientifically minded to be taken to some degree seriously, and I understand because I partake and meditate and understand the spiritual world to some degree, or that whole enterprise. So I also understand where they're coming from, and I'm trying to bridge the two. And now with this discovery, I understand that there's actually a tremendous need for that, because in order to make progress in our scientific understanding, we will need to start injecting both the observer and certain elements of experience itself into our scientific models, and there's no escaping this at this point. But vice versa, the spiritual community would have to recognize the fact that the reason that they can sit on a cushion and meditate for many hours is because of science. They have a safe building they're sitting in. Again, no lions chasing them. All of these things are technologies. All of these things are very important for our baseline functioning of a certain amount of comfort that allows us to then engage in spiritual pursuit. This idea that if we just go back to the old ways, everything's going to be hunky-dory is, of course, nonsense, because people used to die in their sleep from choking on their own teeth without science. And that is also a thing that needs to be recognized. So balance is what I would say what I want. I want balance. I want to accomplish balance both in myself and in the world. Ever since CERN, shit has been Ever since CERN, shit has been well. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Maybe there's a typo, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. I think a single photon laser would slow down the data stream. Well, the photon is not the speed of the photon is the same speed of the way the speed of the wave propagates anyway, because the photon is part of a wavy pattern. Thank you, the business. Glad you joined the team. And even if you do a single photon, it still bounces back into your eye and gives you the same data. It's just that you won't be able to register it, because if I'm not mistaken, and if we have a neuroscientist here, they'll correct me, but I think there's a minimum. I think it's like 3 photons or 2 photons or something to activate your retina. I don't think you can actually register anything beneath that. I'm so conflicted to tell others something that I'm not sure of. And then you shouldn't. Oi. Wait. Oh my God. I failed at my puzzle. Then you shouldn't. It's very simple. It's not a matter of people always ask me, how are you planning to convince everybody? And I said, I'm not trying to convince anybody, which sounds weird and maybe a little bit kind of like not like almost like I'm being a smart ass, but no, it's true. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm literally just making the information available. Here's what it is. Like I always quote Terence McKenna. He said, if it's real, it can take the pressure. I don't attach my own identity to the truth proposition of it. I'm convinced for my own reasons, and I can, talk about these reasons, but it's up to humanity to investigate, find out, decide what to do with it. I see myself as squarely as what I am, an average person.
You're the guy in the allegory of the cave.
Maybe, but I think and again, I don't know if it's my, there's always this tendency to try and not really put ourselves on the throne, because it's, first of all, it's a little scary. And second of all, it's kind of, if you make yourself too special, it's scary in many ways. Right. And I really don't think
there's millions of us that are that person from the allegory that have experienced that hyper reality space.
I would agree with that. I just think that honestly, the ability to communicate authentically and honestly without internal hyperbolic tendency to come out with it, which is hard. It's very difficult, as anybody who partaken in the molecule knows. I mean, dude, how do you not talk about this in terms of like, oh my God, right? How do you not do that? But at the same time, if you want to allow for a certain type of thank you so much, Kirsten, I appreciate the gift. If join the team, this one always cracks me up. But you have to do that. If you want humanity to come together, you have to do two things, as far as I can tell. One, stop pointing a finger. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, and look at yourself. What can you change in yourself? That's first of all. It opens the window for actual progress and more compassion. And the second thing is, always remember that there's always a receiving end to what you're saying, and not everybody talks your language, not just in the actual language, but like your kind of rhetoric. People need to be more sensitive to this, to speak a more neutral language that is not automatically charged with a particular kind of ideology. We know this from politics. Obviously, this is very the second somebody starts saying something political, you almost immediately can tell, without them saying anything of substance, you almost immediately can tell if they're Republican or Democrat, right? Because they have talking points. So they have a certain kind of way of saying things. But this applies to also the spiritual world. This applies to the scientific world. There's a certain clickiness in people that, speak the science thing, right? They tend to minimize things, so bring it down. Hey, let's calm down. It's probably not as crazy as you think, that kind of thing, right? And the spiritual world is like, it's very like, well, depending who, of course, but the caricature version of it is like, it's more like, oh yes, like together. Again, not saying it's bad or good, it's how it is, right? If we speak a more neutral language, it will make it easier to stand in the middle and just allow everybody to come together and actually exchange ideas versus make these ideas compete. I don't even remember what the original question was, but we are here now. No, defer to Danny, but I wouldn't speak about it until you have too confusing. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Kirsten, I agree 100%. Don't speak until you feel called to do so. Oh, that was the original point. Thank you. It will happen by itself if it's supposed to happen. No tigers chasing us, but I have cougars chasing me sometimes. Are you talking about older women?
Yeah, it's a curse that me and Kel have.
Nice.
Well, it might be a blessing too, though.
Yeah. Wait, so that guy that was in LA in the Valley that was in the news that he choked up a mountain lion. Maybe he just choked up a cougar. Is that what they were talking about?
Oh, wow.
That is not that impressive. It's just choked up some girl. Fractals, as my understanding, as human entity, are astronomically terrifying in size. Wait, this is interesting. Oh, wait. Okay, sorry. Wow, my ADD is so crazy. It's insane. Okay, guys. It's like nobody said anything. I'm just like going crazy by myself. Fractals, as my understanding, as a human entity, Wait, fractals are a human entity? Why? Also, are astronomically terrifying in size. Also, why? Why? Like in the real sense, like I'm asking. Even though my fiance would agree with you, she's terrified of fractals. It's the thing that scares her more than anything else. If it's she would hold a cockroach before she would want to look at the Mandelbrot set. Just so you know. But I want to know what you mean by that. No, I believe so.
I'll be honest. Like the first time, like I like truly understood like the Mandelbrot set and like Infinity, it did like take my breath away for a minute. Just because of how awe-inspiring to like realize that there's nothing outside of Infinity.
Yep.
But yeah, it also as I've studied it more and the molecules help me, it's more comforting as well that okay, there's nothing to worry about because your consciousness is always going to go on no matter what, whether you're in this space, you go to the higher level, you might want to dabble, go down to low, but you're always, I think the whole game is just showing love and respect in any opportunity you have in life. And that's the name of the game.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more, man. As always, super, super wise. I think that ultimately, because the game is infinite, what's the name of that book? Wherever you go, there you are, or something like that, right? So yeah, it's like no matter where you're gonna find yourself, it's kind of what I said with the 8 dimensions. It's the you in the middle that matters. So if you're hard to be around, Is it really that enjoyable? So it's like finding that beautiful sweet spot where you can just enjoy whatever is right in front of you, and then you can take this with you anywhere. And I appreciate you too, amazing Amalia. And I appreciate that you appreciate the answers. I do try and give it as much thought as I possibly can, and not to try and make it too short. Bridge signs to spirit, yes. Harmony, I agree with all of that. Members to team, gotcha. Harmony is balance to have harmony within the environmental key. Yep. Can you explain the experiment? The experiment is super simple. You just project a diffracted laser, which is essentially the same thing you see when you scan barcodes in the supermarket. It's just the one particular one that you have to use is under 5 milliwatts, which is the very low output, so you don't damage your cornea. And you project it on the surface, so it's either a strip or an X. And you ingest this molecule, and you would see, that's it. That's the experiment. You will see code running inside the wall, straight up. If you want the real details, there's a protocol and everything you need on the website codeofreality.com. Again, codeofreality.com. Excuse me. I'm still trying to fit my metaphysical knowledge and beliefs to a simulation model. Absolutely. Well, I mean, it does take some, tweaking, but if there's a particular thing in it that you're having, one conundrum with, I would love to hear about it. Again, if you want to come on, you're more than welcome. Or you can just type it, of course, if you don't feel like you want to come on and chat. That's my profile picture. Radical responsibility is my mantra. Thank you for reminding us, Kirsten. I think I found my people. It's hard being a female thinking so antically. I love the word antically. Do you feel that that's a hard thing in particular as a female? How come? Again, real question, not like a smart ass question, like a real question. I'm interested. This is the next step for humanity. Absolutely grateful for a woman I heard speaking with you before. Oh, for the woman. You're talking about Kirsten? Danny's live streams give me a lovely sense of community as well. Well, that makes me feel very good, guys. Why ETA? Why the fractals scary? Yeah, I also don't know, but I think it's because it's infinite. Because it shows you that it's literally infinite. Like literally, whenever my fiance would see it, I thought she was joking in the beginning, but I would show her, and she goes like, "Ah!" So she's like, "It doesn't end."
It shows you how small we are.
Yeah. But it's really funny. To answer your question, fractals have no limit, undefined. Yeah, no beginning, no end. But that's space too. But I guess it shows you that it really illustrates that fact. I understand that part. You know what is?
Kind of like earthquakes. They show you how small you really
Mhm,
are
mhm.
and insignificant, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. But I guess you know what actually not doesn't scare me, but like actually like makes me pause. I don't know if you know this, but the Mandelbrot set, it's infinite when you zoom in, but there is like a first Mandelbrot set. There is the original Mandelbrot set, and it's very well defined. So like there is such a thing as the first Mandelbrot set, and anything outside of it, this black space outside, this one makes me pause. I think it's the difference between eternity and infinity. The infinity is the happening inwards, right? But the outside of it is just dude. Talking about the abyss. Me and at least it doesn't. Oh, we read this. Feel free to speak, brother. I'm just reading comment. Before you smoke the molecule.
No, I was just going to, say a quote that I say almost every live stream of, dying to remember what we live to forget.
Love that phrase, man. Repeat it as much as you want. It's amazing.
I'd love to know, Danny, what are your thoughts? What do you think happens when we die?
I don't know. I think we're maybe being reformulated and go into the next life. I do believe that reincarnation at this point, like I believe it very strongly. Hey, Creating Destiny, good to see you. And Soul Flow is in the house. Bring it on, brother. Before you smoke the molecule, did you ever have any phenomenal? I will answer this question, JRJ Music Art. I will answer this question in a moment, right after Soul Flow is going to share his ideas. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, there's a few people that have been in a coma, and while they've been in a coma for many years, they've been having another life in another time and still on Earth in another body. There's one, it was back in 1924, Paul Dinac, and he wrote, like, he was way in the future, like 3906 or whatever like that. And he wrote all these different stuff, living that life. But when he went there, he took over whoever it is. He didn't remember the past of that person, though. So that's what he kind of explained on that one. One that's more recent is Paul Evans, and Paul Evans was in a coma, and he was in
So it's all the Pauls, huh?
What's that?
It's only Pauls.
It is Pauls, though. That is kind of
It's all the
weird.
Pauls.
This is Paul Evans. But I think he was in like Dubai or something, whatever, when he was in a coma. But he started living a life like in Taiwan or something else. And that one, it was kind of weird because his father in that life passed away, and he, you know, had to bury him and everything else. But then when he came back and somebody's interviewing, because his dad was still alive in that one, he's like, well, you got to bury your father twice or something like that. So that kind of hit him a little bit hard. But it's kind of weird because if it is a simulation and you're in a coma in this one, your brain's not reacting, how do you go to a different life and live like that's kind of, I don't know.
Wait, what is the part? I feel like, and I feel like that just strengthens the simulation idea, right? Because you see that you can have.
It does. That's what I'm just saying is how do you fit certain part? Because what is consciousness? And that's the, you know, the business was trying to explain that too. It's like that's what the main thing is, defining what is that, just not the simulation, but what is consciousness.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is, well, those are, yeah. So these are kind of like, they're both fundamental questions. And I think the core question there is the happening, let's call it the happening, because what I mean by the happening is whatever it is. So either it's a simulation, either it's dimensional space that acts like a computational, doesn't matter what it is. That's why I call it the happening. The fact that anything is happening, okay? So is the happening prior, and then consciousness comes along in some way inside? Is consciousness prior? It is the fundamental thing, and it makes the happening appear. Or they're the same thing, look from the same perspective, or they're two different things happening at the same time, and one couldn't actually be the other one without the other one. Like, I don't know. So I feel like these are the fundamental options. But ultimately, I think that when you get to really think about it, the only thing that can possibly matter is what are you trying to do. If you're trying to have a fun, philosophical seminar, then go wild, man. I mean, go borrow from all the possible ideas, combine them, do whatever. If you're trying to create a technology, well, now you have to ask very particular questions about what is is there any applicable nature to these things? Can they be utilized for anything? Is this a glitch that we're even aware of these things? Like, you have to ask a lot more technical questions. And then there's the question of the good life. Is this a tool that helps you to have a good life? Maybe the answer is no. Maybe the awareness of it actually disturbs your system too much, and it actually makes it, not a good idea to entertain these things unless very aware that you're doing this. It's almost like going to space or under the ocean. You need to do a lot of prep. You have to go into a special vehicle. You have to train. You it's not going to be fun, right? Like, well, not in physically it's not going to be fun. So the question is, what are you trying to do? And if it's just a matter of like putting things in place inside of yourself, which sounds like it's something that I guess we're all engaged in, I think that these things are the closest that I found that anybody has like some remnants of potentially answering both the technical side of it and opens the window to talk about the more esoteric side of it at the same time is Stephen Wolfram's Frame. So if you watch some of Stephen Wolfram's stuff about their recent physics ideas, I don't know if somebody's talking or not, but I can barely hear you if you are. Oh,
no,
maybe.
not.
Yeah, okay.
I keep turning it on and off because I thought she was going to pause, then I might say something, but no, keep going.
Yeah. So I think are you familiar with his work at all on this or no?
I've heard his name and mentioned a few times and stuff like that. I haven't really looked deep into that.
So I think that the much more satisfactory frame, like I think for most people, would be Donald Hoffman's stuff, because it kind of it circumvents a lot of the need to understand the mathematics behind it, and the way that the way he talks about it is a lot more, I guess, streamlined for human intuition, because he talks about the fact that consciousness is fundamental, and then he overlays some conceptual and mathematical frames around it. But that's a much easier to get into. So it's between Donald Hoffman, Bernardo Kastrup. These are really good frames. That's why I know you probably heard me recommend it before, but I really insist that these two frames are very helpful, because they come from a rigorous perspective, and they make sense a lot of the more esoteric experiences people do have that regular mainstream science does not allow for to be a part of the picture.
Right. I've read Bernardo Kastrup within the last month because of listening to somebody else on your panel recommended, and I went ahead and looked into that. That is still, it's more theory, not math. But I try to explain to somebody else, metaphysics is different than explaining something that's not in our universe, and basically science is the measure and everything that is in our physical universe, and they're not exactly the same thing. So you can't really use science, but you're trying to say is you're trying to figure out how to do that. So if we're in a simulation, how do you prove outside the simulation itself?
Well, there's no outside of the simulation in the model. What I'm seeing is that there's no outside of the simulation. The existence itself is a computational system, is what I'm saying.
Right. I agree with you. Our physical universe is a computational system.
No, I'm talking about not just the physical
Okay.
universe, anything that is even possible to exist. I'm talking about everything. That's why I say existence, not just the physical universe, because there's probably way more than that.
Right, there is. Okay. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, just so you know, I never know if I mean, I know you are a regular, and I know you come on, and I just don't know enough about you yet. Do you consider yourself to be more on the cerebral side, like more technically oriented, or you like a little bit more mysticism or sprinkled on top of it, or what are your preferences?
When I was younger, I was pretty much a nerd. I didn't take the SAT. I took the ACT, which was another college placement thing, and I scored a 33, which was 99 percentile, so the top 1% in the nation for science. So basically, that's all I really cared about. I was an atheist for a while, even though I grew up kind of like in a Bible thumping Church of Christ, which they actually believe the Bible is the Word of God. They believe a younger 6,000 years, all this stuff. That's what I grew up in, but it's not quite what I believed in my 20s. So for a long time, I was atheist until you start having paranormal stuff happen. Then you start being open up to certain things.
I see. Okay, so you are, so you basically just a free thinker and explorer. So
I'm 54 now, so it's it's quite a few things have changed.
So if you are looking if you want something a little bit more technical, Donald Hoffman's theory definitely goes into a much more technical realm. So like it starts with about where Kastrup starts, but Kastrup is a philosopher in that sense. I mean, he's also a computer scientist, but in this realm, he's functioning as a philosopher. But Donald Hoffman functions as an actual scientist. So like the frame includes actually pretty heavy math if you get into the details, but you can kind of build it. So if you are interested in something a little bit more technical that gets into that, then definitely Donald Hoffman would be the way to go to read some of this stuff.
Okay, at the university level, I was a computer science major. I never got my bachelor's, but took a lot of math courses, went up to Calc 3, took higher level statistics,
Yeah, so you can
your set theory, there's all the different math, But yeah, so I'm familiar with that. So I'm just not going to be over my head if somebody goes through that. I just don't know how to apply that to why would baby spirits come to you before they're born? That kind of stuff. That one blows my mind.
So basically, well, he starts the argument, and again, stop me if you heard this before and you don't need this recapitulation. But the central idea is very simple. He basically discovered, and that was in the 80s, that if you run any simulation with an agent, and you apply evolutionary game theory to it, so just pure math, right? A statistical analysis of it. He discovered that every agent that is aware of anything beyond the reward functions, in other words, aware of more than just the reward function, so like anything about the environment that gave rise to it, will 100% of the time lose the evolutionary game to any agent that is not aware, that is only aware of the reward functions. In other words, proved mathematically that in 100% of cases, you cannot have an agent in any environment that is capable of competing evolutionarily with any other agent that is only cares about how to get food or to get what they need for that environment. And then he obviously hired mathematicians to help him like make sure that this actually holds water. And then when he discovered that it does, they started developing a whole math around it. And then fast forward to today, at this point the work is very robust because it stretches all the way from like theoretical physics to theoretical math to evolution and stuff like that. And it does make sense of even the phenomena, the esoteric phenomena that you mentioned, because essentially it's like an idealistic worldview in which all you postulating is the conscious agent in the beginning, and then although as opposed to Bernardo Kastrup, they are mathematically through like complex math and through geometry, they can reproduce the field equations, space-time, everything, which means that we can actually describe the world in these terms. You have a consciousness in the beginning, and then you can describe everything we see physically, but it opens the window for all these extra things to come in, because then it makes sense of why you would have ghosts or goblins or things like that come to people in some other space, because that space, wherever they're coming from, that is the real space. That is the more infinite space. Space-time is just an arising property of that. So in that sense, that's how he makes sense of it. But if you want like true satisfaction mathematically, you can actually read, a lot of his work, and especially because he's really trending now. There's a lot of it online that you can find easily.
Okay, I would definitely look into those.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I will take, guys, a few more comments, and I have to go pick up my better half from the airport in about 20 minutes. So let's see what we can knock out in 20 minutes before being individual. Yes, you're very interesting. Yeah, I would say amazing Amalia. Oh, SoFlo, you just jumped off. You're always welcome to stay, brother, just so you know. And you can jump on if you want. You can just hang out. And then if you feel like you want to say something, you're more than welcome to. We had these panels randomly a few days ago, a couple of times, and it was very successful and very fun. So anybody is welcome to just jump on. So SoFlo, just so you know that for next time. Or you can just jump back on, no problem. I'm bored being this individual. You shouldn't be. You are very interesting. This will sound silly, but do you meditate? This will help. That is true. Temporarily release our consciousness into a reality higher than this one. Taking off tight. Let's say I meditated and very intriguing. Wait. I have meditated and it was very intriguing. Had a death in the family and stopped. Wait, what? So you think that the death in the family was related?
I think what she's saying is that she was meditating and then there was just a death in her family, so it got too overwhelming that she stopped.
I see. Okay, that makes sense.
At least that's what I got intuitively. Yeah.
Thank you. How you doing, brother?
Fine, thanks. How are you? Thank you for discourse. I really, I stumbled on your live, but this sort of thing really registers very heavily with me because I've lost pretty much everybody that I know and loved, my family.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. So it's got me to the point where I'm really trying to understand what it is that we are made of and why we are here, what's the reasoning behind us. I don't believe in oh goodness, Darwinism one bit. I can't believe that people actually think that we are a result of just millennia of. It's like the clock box theory, just because you have elements of machinery, you can't just put them in a box and spin them around for a millennia and expect them to make a clock.
So it's the
Um,
so it's the mechanistic element of it that you can't connect with.
No, I think that's where intelligent design comes into play.
Is it possible in your mind that this is just that evolution by natural selection is just the technical explanation of how it occurs here in this space, but it is still possible at the same time that there is some unifying force that is acting from underneath it that actually makes it appear that way, but we don't entertain that force scientifically at the moment. But they both can be happening at the same time. Would you be open to that?
I would be open to that. I would definitely be open to that, because I don't believe for 1 minute that we having this discourse is something that just happened randomly. We having the mindset to categorize these concepts and what have you. That just happens out of the blue. It doesn't make any sense. I just don't understand how people can even begin to think that exists as a reality.
Well, because people tend to describe things in very mechanistic ways, at least in the current scientific zeitgeist. What is your would you say that? So first of all, it doesn't sound like these questions started after you lost all the people you loved, as you said. It sounds like this was accompanying you since you remember yourself. Am I understanding it correctly or no?
Yes, I would say to an extent. When I was a child, I had some out-of-body experiences, and I knew that there was something other than this physical existence, right? I just didn't know what it was. Like the gentleman before me was talking about, he grew up in this Bible-thumping evangelical construct, and that is very much how I grew up. So I was sort of put into this mold that I broke out of, in my 20s, because I moved out of the house and stuff like that. And then life happens, right? And you have all these questions, but there's nobody to answer them for you, because everybody has these questions. So coming into contact with you and you describing this whole situation has sort of exposed me to a new element of possibilities, which I am so appreciative of.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to understand, do you think that we are part of like a bigger equation, or like you're saying something about code and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think that it's again the same kind of relationship between what is the technical way in which the thing unfolds and what the real thing is. So yeah, my view at this point is that we're definitely part of a much larger picture. I think that what it really is, it's not what most people entertain, both in religious circles and in spiritual circles. I think the real thing is it truly I think it escapes conceptual framework, but I am saying that we do need conceptual framework to try and describe elements of it. And it doesn't matter if it's in the space of living a better life or in the technical space. In both, you need some conceptual framework to talk about it. Mm-hmm. The code seems to be just very concrete. Like it's not like a like I saw it up there through my third eye. No, like just regular digital clock that you see right in front of you, which which opens a very vast box of questions, as you can probably understand. And the fact that it's even discoverable, that alone should make us understand that something else, like there's a different riddle here, right? Yeah. And I do think that it's not a coincidence that it's happening now with all the transitions that we're going globally and personally. And ultimately, in the context of what you're saying, I think that the test is, can we align ourselves in such a way with the rest of what the world is doing, so we can proceed to the next level, because the next level requires a certain kind of signature of a type of a person. Like you can't enter certain spaces if you don't have a certain amount of maturity, let's say. Does that make sense? So it's like a wake up call for all humanity. It's like, hey, like you really gotta place yourself. You really have to work on yourself in a way that will help us let you in. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. That's what I think is as essentially happening, and it's also why you see such a giant uptake in both
Technology and all that.
well, technology, but also the spiritual pursuit. And yes, a lot of it
Don't you
can.
think that was always there, though, the spiritual pursuit.
But
I mean,
it was there, but notice that it became a lot more commercialized now. Now some people see it as like, well, now the West. It's just the West being the West. We bottle everything up and we sell it for the highest bidder, right? But I do think that it's not just a matter of availability, because you can say, well, social media, it makes everything more available. I also think it's like the energetic drive to do that. It's like a necessity now. So like you really have to kind of align yourself. So it's the technology, the spiritual pursuit, the awareness of these things, and ultimately it's also the birth of responsibility. It's like this understanding that we can't just stand and do whatever. So we care more for the environment. We understand that it's required. Obviously, there's push and pull. There's always going to be push and pull. And I think that the next level of that is just reconciling the differences, instead of thinking of it in terms of, dropping the idea of battling things. So like the war on drugs, fight global warming, like these terms need to dissipate. Like you don't need to fight other people because they have to use coal because they're in a third world country and they don't have a choice. You need to understand their situation and then think together, how can you remedy that situation? Because that ultimately we want to get off, I'm just using this as an example. That ultimately we want to get off fossil fuel. Great. Okay. But how do you do that? The birth of responsibility. Like, what is it that you actually have to do on a functional level to do that? And at the same time, the birth of responsibility spiritually. It's much easier to take the position as like, well, I don't need to be a better person. I just need to understand the world. So if I can understand the world better, which was the old perception, right? If I can understand the world better, I can just build better devices and better drugs that can help me. Okay. Instead of, how do I take responsibility for how I operate moment to moment? Maybe I won't need to use as many different substances, and therefore I won't have to develop as many of these. Maybe I can still develop technologies that are required for exploration, like going to space and things like that. But at the same time, I'm not going to consume as much because I'm okay with what I have, and I don't constantly need to have the newest car. So you get the picture, right? Like taking the responsibility of your actual being changed and growing versus constantly trying to change something outside. I think that's why this is what this thing is encouraging us to do. Does that make sense? Or
it does. I mean, so taking responsibility, did you say?
Mm-hmm. It's the easiest thing. We do this all the time. I do it all the time. I catch myself all the time, right? We do this all the time. We're just like, this is wrong. This is wrong. This way of and sometimes we don't even notice because we couch it in all kinds of like in a virtue signaling blanket, so we don't even notice that we're doing this. But like we constantly cast blame on something else, and then it's only when you start thinking, okay, what can I change about myself? I can't change this. So what can I change about myself? And then ultimately, if I just focus on that and everybody focuses on that, now it's much more appealing to try and mimic this kind of behavior of looking at yourself and changing yourself. And also the next generation will obviously teach this to their kids. And here you go. You start working with like a new kind of human that is basically taking responsibility and acting not out of a place of blame, but out of a place of compassion.
I get that. But what does the code have to do with that though?
The code has to do with the fact that when you see something that is truly there, it actually opens the window that, well, first of all, for a lot of people that never entertain these ideas, that they kind of like, they tether on the line of like that. They don't really know if there's actually something out there, or it's maybe just a bunch of spiritual people saying all kinds of things. If when you see it for yourself, you can't really deny it anymore. I was specifically, everything I just said wasn't necessarily referring to the code directly. It was referring to what I think is unfolding in the world and why the code came to us at this time versus any other time, because I think that humanity is ready to understand something more about the world and themselves and how it all relates. And this is why I believe the code appeared now and made itself available to be seen, because it is the time for humanity to kind of, okay, we're ready. Moving on to the next level. Do you mind if I ask you? I don't want to probe too much because I'm sure it's very personal. Was this a recent thing where you said you lost everybody you love? Or was this just something you've been living in for a long time?
No, it's been happening for a while. I lost my father when I was 15. I lost my mother in 2015, and a lot of friends in the interim as well.
Wow.
And it's really because, I grew up thinking that the world was a certain way. And then after I lost my parents and my friends, I realized that once we're gone, we're gone. There's no more voices, There's no more teaching. None of that. So my journey has been one exploration of what it is that we're doing here, why we're here. Not so much as what we're doing, but why we exist and what the end game is. That's really the crux of my journey.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it sounds like you just found this chat today, but so if you watch if you go to Dango Thoughts on YouTube, there's a video called, I'll tell you the exact timestamp so you don't have to watch the whole thing.
Would you send me a link?
There's no hyperlinks on. I can absolutely do that. There's just no hyperlinks on TikTok, so it's the same as if. Yeah. So I can just give you the. By the way, everybody in the chat, including you, just so you guys know, you can always either DM me or email me to lasersimulationx@gmail.com. I respond to all my texts and messages. But if you go to, that is if you obviously think that there's something deeper that you would like to explore or talk, no problem. So there's a one video on Dango Thoughts called the name of the molecule that I cannot say. Laser experiment reveals visible code. So if you go to that one, and I think it's minute 16. And that there I'm talking about why I think everything is happening, like why these civilizations simulating all these spaces. And from what I saw so far, I'm not claiming to have some kind of an ultimate truth, but at least from what I saw in the space so far, is that they are interested in the same question that you're asking. That ultimately, the truth, it seems to be, is that even the highest civilization in existence itself still cannot figure out why everything exists. And that is why they're running the simulation, all these simulations, to try and understand that exact thing.
The thing is, there's an order to this, it's not completely it's not a complete situation of disorder. There is order to all of this. And that's the thing. There's so much order, but then when death comes along, the order, there's a dent.
Dent? There's a dent?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
In the order. So, well, there's a dent in people's lives. There's a dent in the way the world functions. Because if the person that passes is somebody that has a lot of authority, that is doing some pretty amazing things, on the global front, their absence creates a void, right?
Yes, in other people's experience, right? I see what you're saying. Okay.
So So yeah, so like what's the continuity is I guess what I'm trying to figure out, you know, like
What's the thing that
continuity
binds
of
us? Like, what is the thing that binds everybody? Is that what you're
from
asking?
this existence to the next?
Oh, I see. So, like, if there will be a reincarnation, what is this idea of the soul, so to speak? Like, what is this thing that continues?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's the same. I think it's the same informational. What is he eating? Hold on, he's eating a book. 1 second. It's I think it's the same informational pattern from the beginning that basically is evolving and trying to understand all of experience as possible. I think that's what, like, if you want to think of the soul from like a technical souls from a technical standpoint, it's like this ultimate consolidation system hard drive that just travels through all of existence from the beginning to the end and experiences all the possible things and then cleans up all the things that have already experienced, which is most of it. And then at the end of it, it just keeps all the stuff that were not experienced before, consolidates it, and moves on. Consolidates it, moves on. So by the end of everything, you kind of have this like ultimate data set that contains every possible experiences ever. And it's just like all combined into this ultra mega thing that tries to figure out, is there one common denominator? Just exactly what you're asking. Is there one common denominator between all the spaces, all the times, all the dimensions? Is there anything that is the same in all of them? Because if you can point to that, that gives you at least a seed that potentially you can use to start unfolding the ultimate answer or the ultimate question.
And then once it figures all that out, it creates an entire new reality and starts over again.
Or maybe at this point, just like, all right, we're done. No, it was like, yeah, we're done. This is it. I see that James came on. How are you, James?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me up. I love this discussion. I'm I guess a panpsychist. All I believe in is really consciousness. But I think everything's conscious. I come from a world filled with nature, and I see how beautiful and natural the world can be.
Yeah. Would you? Yeah, it sounds like it's a little bit more idealism, but I mean, it's very, very similar. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I was just getting in place here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So, would you say, like, is this something that the position that you always held, or something that you came to see the world this way?
I came to it after an NDE experience in my life that changed everything.
That sounds like that would do it. What was your? Was there like a some dramatic event, like a car accident, or was
Motorcycle accident.
Ooh.
I crashed my street bike doing a stunt and broke my back and neck, and I've been in a wheelchair for 8 years, living with the consequences. But the NDE experience, when I was gone, it was just a palace in nature, like Crystal Palace, and the energy bodies that were all present there was all of us, everyone we know, or whatever, everything, everybody. But every energy body was holding a tablet. It was the only thing that didn't totally fit into the natural space that was there. There was a tablet or a device, like a cell phone, and they were playing a game, and it was for fun. Like, we were all there like a party, the best party we ever had. It was amazing. But the purpose of the game was us on Earth. We're all playing a character in this game, on these devices.
There's my Sims theory again.
Yep. Wow.
And I've seen the tablet as well in molecule experiences too.
How long were you when you had the NDE? How long did it last? Was it like something that lasted for a while, or was it like in seconds?
I was out for like a month.
Oh, wow. So you were like in a coma.
Yeah, I was in a coma, and then I was in an induced coma to perform all the surgeries that were necessary.
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm happy you're alive.
Thanks, man.
That's crazy.
When you were there for a month, what was the time span that it felt like to you when you came back?
Eternity, like, I mean, it feels like it's happening still. And deep in meditation or with plant medicines, I can reach a place where I can communicate at that same type of level with the players of the game, and how it always comes to me how fun it is. Like, it's meant to be awesome. It's like the best virtual reality games that you could ever buy, with all your best friends that you ever could think of, in the crazy, do whatever you want kind of landscape. It's pretty amazing. I've had a pretty amazing life. I got to experience some awesome stuff. I pushed it way too far, and then and live in a wheelchair now. But like, I had some pretty amazing fun with what we can do here now. Is pretty amazing.
And Danny, that kind of reminds me of what I brought up the other night about that Black Mirror episode, playtest,
Mm-hmm.
where I told you he put the headset on. And it's like, all right, you're about to try out this new tech, and it's an hour episode. He goes through the whole thing and has this crazy experience. They take the headset off. They're like, all right, that was 8 seconds. How was it? It's kind of like a thing where we're all. And once you've experienced that, it's hard to live your life with like hate in your heart or like disrespect towards people. It's just it like frees you from any that quote I've said before: the love that you withhold is the pain that you carry. It's just like any chance you have to show love to somebody and you don't, like, that's how you don't score points in the game.
Yeah, it's the lack of scoring. So James, Soulflow is asking you, were you a gamer before the coma?
No, there's a time in my life where I had played games, mainly only Grand Theft Auto, for the experience of do whatever you want kind of world.
I guess he's asking if that representation was because it's something that was very dear and clear to you. But I think Soulflow, I don't know if that's what it is. I really think that because I'm telling you from my own experience, like it's an element of like a computational system that is happening from a higher dimension. So everything James is saying makes perfect sense to me. Like, just in universal terms, like just somebody's. It's not just entertainment, but I in full agreement with James that it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to just be enjoyable. Something that we shouldn't like. We make it way too serious sometimes. Too many. And wait, what is in there?
Yeah, the first time I went into the space in 2009, one of the little gnomes that walked up to me, that was the gift that they gave me. They like gave me one of the tablets, and that's what like sitting into the wormhole and like all that other stuff. And yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, James, when you refer to the tablets that we hold in that space.
That's cool that you had that experience too. That's cool confirmation.
Yeah, no, you're definitely not alone there. How long ago was this when you had the accident?
2016.
2016. Okay, so a while back, but still, like that's like what, 10 years ago now? Yeah, 10 years. So Soulflow is saying, I've listened to many NDEs that didn't feel like a simulation. Didn't have the simulation feel. I agree. They have like more of like an angelic heaven feel. I know what you're talking about. So maybe it does manifest itself in different ways in which we understand, or it's possible that we are part of different channels. So it's like ultimately, yeah, it's kind of like just representation, of the same process unfolding. But it is possible that we are all right now kind of feel like we're in the same space, but it's possible that we're not all in the same space. Like we're actually looking through some kind of a veil at each other through parallel worlds. At this point, it's not even that crazy to me that like certain people are on a particular trajectory in one timeline, and we're all in just merging every once in a while into the same timeline, and we're looking at each other. And this is where kind of like the points of view really don't align. We're like, what are you talking about? Like, it literally feels like you live in a different world. Maybe they are. They literally they sample from an information from a completely different trajectory of possibility of things. And in some of these worlds, heaven is a thing. In other worlds, advanced civilizations is a thing, and they don't necessarily always like in the same, unfolding part of the tree, but ultimately they all lead to the same, understanding. So that actually makes perfect sense to me, because both of them feel very real, and that's a really good point, Soflo. I know what you mean. A lot of people come back from an NDE and then write a book about, they know that heaven is real. Like that's a very common occurrence. The amnesia aspect of people send back to Earth over again.
Even if you don't use the word heaven, just a higher reality setting,
Yeah, but I do feel like no. So I do feel that the vibe of both of them has a particular signature, and it's kind of like a recognizable signature. Like you would know heaven if you're there. You know what I mean? Like you would know this is heaven. Like there's like a thing to it. There was one experience I was actually telling somebody today that one time with the console, the way that the console brings objects into the room is in these capsules that I showed the graphic of, right? And then one time I was working and I was smoking at the same time, and this something appeared on my right, and I look over and I see this capsule like per usual, but this one looked special, like it had like a special package, whatever it was. And then it opens, and then I see this sphere in the middle. And the second that I saw that sphere, it was just a sphere, but the second that I saw it, I believed in heaven. I was like, oh, there was such deep beauty to it, and I can't describe it with words because it was just a ball, like a sphere. But there was the texture of it, the way it was appearing. At the same time, there was like this crazy sound that sounded like a sound from heaven, like oh, whatever it was. And then there was these triangles that came from the side of it and started doing this dance around it, around the room. And I was so giddy. It was crazy. I was so giddy. I think it's the only time in my life where I can say I felt true like awe. And at the same time, I was like, oh my God. Like I couldn't, even though I've seen the console many times, this object, it was very clear to me by the way it was appearing that this was way beyond the pay grade of whomever made the console. Like this came from a different place. This is way up there, right? And it has a different tone. And actually it's funny because I was so beside myself that my fiance was in the shower. I literally pulled her out of the shower. I was like, "You come here, come." She's like, "What?" She's like walking out. It's like half wet. I'm like, I know she can't see it, but this is how crazy I was. I was like, it was so profound that I needed someone to see me seeing it because of how crazy it was. I was like, you don't understand. This is insane. I was literally like jumping like a little kid. I'm saying it because I know that there's these signatures to a thing. And I do feel that heaven is a different idea, and it's a different thing than saying it's just a very advanced civilization built a city. Like they have a different tone to them. I don't know if I'm making any sense to you, but
no, it's making perfect sense. Like on some experiences you get to the advance, and then there's heaven above that, where it's you go from like really cool fractal like entities and all that, and above that like the true unconditional love space where it's just like you say, infinite awe.
Yeah. All right, I think so, guys. I thank you so much. Unfortunately I have to cut it short today because I have to go to the airport to pick up that beautiful creature. And I love you all. Thank you so much for joining. James, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that. Pasha, or I don't know, you disappeared, but thank you so much for sharing as well. Please, guys, come by, and you can follow me also on YouTube, Dango Thoughts. We're here every single day. I am still switching the hours a little bit. Like I can't really hone in on a particular hour because I do have other responsibilities. But we're here every single day, and would love to see you all. Good night, everybody. Peace and love.
Amen. Thanks for the space. Peace and love.
Thank you, James. Thank you to business. See you, YouTube. Thank you so much for showing up.